Final Fantasy XIII-2 follows up from the incredibly dull Final Fantasy XIII, which Alex and Spencer have enjoyed deriding for its corridors, and it really is a little bit too much of a walking simulator 13. So Final Fantasy XIII does away with that. From the moment you start, well, you can actually play the game. There's a really long early cutscene to get through. It's like 10 minutes long. But once you pass that, they're just getting you ready for the good gameplay. They haven't made you suffer long enough yet. After you get past the first 10 minutes, then it's all a series of fairly open levels. It's a cool game where basically you pick each level to play in like an instance. They're all arranged on its timeline, and you just click where on the timeline you want to play. It loads you into that level, and off you go. There's a set of quest objectives, typical in like Final Fantasy XIII's open area. The combat, though, is the reason why 13.2 is worth playing. Forget the story. It starts to not make sense. Who cares about that? The combat has you and one other human character, and you get to create an ensemble of Final Fantasy monsters and bring them into your party. And so your third slot in battle gets to be one of those monsters. And like in Final Fantasy 13, where you could swap out different sets if you wanted to be, offensive or synergistic or whatever, Final Fantasy 13-2 kind of keeps that, but you get to swap out your monster, that third character in your party. And so you could have 3 offensive monsters, you could have 3 elemental monsters, and usually the combat is a little more intricate in that way. You actually feel like you have to counter whatever you're going up against. So it's more hands-on, it's faster paced, it's way more fun, and that's the best that I can do to describe it. Basically, you play Final Fantasy 13-2, even if you want to skip 13 to get there, because who cares about the story? It's just got some of the more unique combat in the series.
Would you have skipped the first game to play this in hindsight?
No, but I have a really high tolerance for terrible games. And Final Fantasy 13 is not even terrible. It's just really mediocre. But I don't know. I don't mind wasting 40 hours of my life. I've wasted 40 hours in worse ways.
Is the combat that good?
I mean, what are we comparing it to here? For the Final Fantasy series, I think it's among the best combat. Yeah.
Man, I'm just watching it.
Spencer, Alex, have you guys played it?
It looks like a PS3 game.
Yeah, it is. Shock, surprise, Spencer. It is.
No, I'm just saying, when I think of PS3, like just the generic whatever, this is it.
Yeah, that's true. I've never played this one. I've always wanted, because I recently, not recently being like the last 5 years, purchased all 13 games with the mindset that one day I'm just gonna do it. So they've just been rotting away on my shelf until that day comes. So no, I've never played 13-2. I've only ever experienced the first one. But that is nice to hear that there is some improvement from the first game.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tons.
Cool.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but did you play this recently?
No, but you would have seen footage in the Final Fantasy ranking video, just briefly maybe. I probably included it somewhere else. But yeah, right now the video escapes me.
The reason I ask is, did you play 13.3?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Lightning Returns, you mean?
Yeah. I guess a couple questions. The first one is, what do you think of the series if you view it as a whole? Or not the series, but the game.
Yeah, the trilogy.
The trilogy, yeah, we'll say that.
Really weak. I think the only reason why they ran with it is because at the time of the first one's release, they were getting all those tie-ins with like Louis Vuitton and those other companies, right? So they had incentive to continue it. In fact, it was probably part of their contracts where they're telling these companies, you will get continued advertising because we have a series planned. We're going to do a trilogy of games with Lightning. So they probably spread it thin for a lot of corporate reasons. And the story goes off the rails. It's like they can't decide what kind of battle versus God they want to have. So 13 is like, oh yeah, they're gonna battle the old gods, and then 13-2 is okay. Well, they're gonna battle this bad guy who's as strong as the god, but there's other gods, and then it's just in the background. It's like they almost wanted to take something based on some mythology for Final Fantasy 13-2, and then Lightning Returns is like, okay, no, let's battle the god. Yeah, that's the good idea. It's just all over the place. So terrible writing. The characters are mostly forgettable. Hallway simulators. The list of complaints is probably worse than a list of positives. But 13-2 does kind of shine, guys. It's like a little nugget of gold in a big heaping pile.
Well, and like also around that time, like around like the PS3 and stuff, like Japanese game development obviously got a lot more expensive at that time, and they weren't as open to using like other like engines, like like Unreal and such, as like other like Western developers would. So I believe they made their own engine for 13, and they were probably also tied to it after that point because they dumped so much money into it. So after they expected 13 to be such a big success, they were like, shit.
Right. It was supposed to be their new like something Crystallis universe. And they were getting all mixed up
and they made it
15, 13, same world, different world.
Yeah, versus 13, which became
plans.
15, was part of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it'd be so interesting to hear some developer stories of what went on behind the scenes. They for sure had a way bigger universe planned, and the game just didn't pan out in a way that the audience cared for it.
My other question is
so I think they made that engine and got stuck, man.
But it looks great. Speaking of the engine, I think it's probably the best looking Final Fantasy. I mean, 15 is up there too, and I haven't played 16 yet either. But thankfully, it's at a point where the graphical fidelity is really high for like game looking graphics, and they hadn't gotten into motion capture yet. I can't stand motion captured models. I feel like they're always uncanny, a little jarring. So it's a good game that still looks like a video game.
my other question was going to be, what is your opinion of Lightning as a protagonist?
Probably in the top half instead of the bottom half of Final Fantasy protagonists. She never bothered me. Like, I like the pretty typical hero archetype. So I have no qualms with that aspect of her. And I feel like she always, you don't really need better motivation for a character than saving your family. And so that was really what propelled her through most of the trilogy.
Okay.
All the trilogy, actually. Yeah.
Was she?
Honestly, she's probably less annoying than some of the other ones.
Yeah, she's not annoying at all. And actually, like, there's some... Yeah. You finished that.
Sorry. I was gonna say his like even like Titus or Titus, what the fuck you say? I say Titus. You can say Titus. Or even Vaughn from 12. Like, they're annoying. So
yeah, they did make Lightning a little more mature. They tried to keep her quiet more often than not. And there were some interesting relationships. Like, there was one where Lightning basically became a positive role model for the youngest character in the party. Almost like a quasi mother figure. But there just weren't enough of those good moments. Yeah.
So what made you want to pick it today?
You caught me off guard and it came to mind.
Oh.
No.
Final Fantasy XIII-2.
You can cut that if you want. No, I feel like, if I pick one of my other favorite games, I mean, you guys have probably heard how much I like 2. But honestly, my memory of the rest of what happens in 2 is pretty sparse right now. I just know that I loved the combat system.
Sure.
And then 5 is really typical. 8, 10, they're fairly typical. So why not mix it up and do 13-2?